powered by Keller Williams Freedom, and this is Fabulous Neighbors of Colorado, where we feature local businesses and entrepreneurs. And today I'm so lucky I'm with Andy Holloman. He is the owner of Holloman Associates, American Family Insurance. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for letting us be a part.
Oh, thank you for inviting us to your office. We can't wait for a tour. It's huge.
Yeah, it's bigger than many, so
Yeah.
we'll give you a tour.
Great location, too, right off of the main road, so easy to find. Well, we're looking forward to it. This is where the magic happens.
That's exactly what we want to believe and what we want to express to others, so that's great.
Awesome. So what is American Family Insurance, and what does it set you all apart?
American Family is a multi-line insurance company, so it takes care of what we typically look at as home and auto,
Okay.
but it goes beyond that. We're able to look at life insurance. We're also able to do commercial insurance, so we do quite a bit in the commercial realm.
Yeah.
And then we have a brokerage firm that we also use,
Okay.
and it allows us to go outside the parameters of where AmFam would typically want to work.
Okay. I didn't realize that you did life as well and all.
We
That's
do.
really cool.
We do.
One-stop shop.
That's what we hope to believe. Yeah, cradle to grave.
So how often should I revisit my policy? Because those fires in Black Forest really threw a lot of
Yeah.
people off.
One of the favorite things that we do is sit down with our customers and do an annual review.
Okay.
And we like to say annual. We invite people in annually, but more often than not, it's every 2 to 3 years. People will come in and do a review. I like the idea of annually because we have more change that occurs in a year than at any time than we realize. And in that process, we have changes occurring more greatly every day. When we look at change, today's change will be the slowest change is going to be. So we look at people's lives change. They acquire things, they change jobs, they add children, all kinds of things go on in people's lives. So we do what we can to make sure that we connect with them fairly often and want to sit down with them and help them through, make sure we got them covered appropriately.
Yeah, I think it's important to revisit because you don't want to be caught off guard like some of those people did with the Black Forest
That's correct.
fires, and they were like, they didn't have adequate coverage, and it was really sad.
Many of them didn't, and that goes back to, again, doing the reviews. It's the things that we don't want to do because we're always worried it's going to cost us a little bit more. But in the end, if you're one of the unfortunate ones that has an incident that occurs, you want to make sure you're covered properly.
Yeah. Well, and then you might have things that would bring it down too, like a new roof.
Correct.
People don't realize replacing that roof
There's
just
some-
brought your insurance.
There's some discounts that go with it.
Yeah.
So it is. It's a way, I talk about it like a hard drive on a computer, the old days of a hard drive on a computer.
Mhm.
What do we have to do to optimize it? How do we make it better for you so that we are covering you appropriately but giving you all the discounts that would apply in the process?
Yeah, perfect. So what is RCV versus ACV? That comes up when my clients are shopping for insurance to close on their home.
Sure. In most cases, people want a replacement cost policy, which is the RCV. It stands for
Okay.
replacement cost. ACV stands for actual cash value.
Okay.
So the difference between the two is one would give you the depreciated value of the property if something were to happen. That's the ACV piece. On
you
the
don't want
replacement, no, well, you typically don't want that. There may be
Okay.
some people who say, hey, based on what I want to insure and how I want to insure it, ACV might be appropriate for them. But in
Okay.
most cases where we live here in the Springs or where we may live in other areas where we have newer homes and things like that, you might look at it and say, I definitely want to make sure I've got a replacement cost policy. And in that process, many of the mortgage companies will require it to be replacement cost.
Okay.
So,
Okay, because ACV sounds like more money, cash value, but that's,
but that's not necessarily
It's
true.
misleading,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. It goes back to how old is my roof? Let's talk about ACV as it relates to a roof. How old is my roof? Well, it would be the depreciated amount of that roof. If my roof is depreciated over a 30-year period of time and my roof is 15 years old and I have an ACV policy, then I'm typically going to receive about 15 years worth of value on that roof.
wow.
And that's it. And then I've got to make up the difference in the replacement of that roof if I need to have it done.
Yeah, try to avoid those, it sounds like, if possible.
If possible, and again, it goes back to talking through what's important to the customer. It's important that my team takes the time to explain the differences, and in the process says, in your case, we would recommend this, and
Yeah.
in most cases, that would be replacement cost.
Perfect. And I hate to say this, but we are approaching hail season.
Yes.
Like, it's almost here, I can't believe it. What do I do when I get hit by hail?
So in our hail season typically runs as early as late March, early April, all the way through September.
It's so much
So
longer than
it
I
is,
thought.
it is longer than we all think, and when it occurs, the first thing you typically want to do is have someone come out, a qualified roofer, come out and take a look at your roof to see what type of damage has occurred. a lot of people do an instant reaction, say, I'm gonna call in a claim. The problem with doing that is you don't know whether you have damage or not. So I always say, get a qualified roofer to take a look, have them come out, document where the damage is, have them take photos, have them do a schematic of the roof, and they can typically do circles and tell you where the hail hits are.
Okay.
They're basically looking for a certain number of hits on what they call a square, which is a 10 by 10 area of the roof.
Okay.
Once they have that, then what you can do is say, is there enough damage there to warrant some form of a claim? If that's the case, then the claim can be called in, and an adjuster will come out and work with the roofer to make sure that you have appropriate coverage in terms of making sure that the roof is paid for by the insurance company. Typically, they'll pay out a certain amount of dollars to get the work started, and then at the end, they'll give you what's called the recoverable depreciation, meaning that you've got the replacement cost of the policy.
Okay. That's interesting, because we got hit by the hail the first time, and we called insurance, we didn't know what the heck to do. And so everything was destroyed. But that's good to know that we did it wrong, and next time we shouldn't do it
Well,
that way.
I wouldn't say it's wrong. What I would say is that when you do that, if there is no hail damage, then you've basically filed a claim. That's going to show up on your claim history as a zero paid out. And there's a point where those things do ding you. They cost you in terms of the insurance company looking and saying, what kind of frequency are you having in terms of the amount of claims that you're filing.
Sure.
The goal isn't to be punitive, but I always tell people, be sure in advance. That's one of those gotcha moments where you feel like, what's insurance for? If I can't call and have them come out, I always tell them, do your homework first, then let's talk about filing the claim and taking care of you through that process.
Okay, I like that, and I like how you're open and upfront about this is what you should do.
Sure.
Yeah. What are some good additional endorsements that I should add to my policy? Because there's like a menu that you guys kind of offer quite a bit.
There are, and the way that we look at it is I want to sit with the customer, and it goes back to those insurance reviews, or whether we're dealing with a brand new customer and talking them through, hey, here are some of the things that we can offer you, what's important to you. So oftentimes somebody with a finished basement will want to talk to them about a sewer backup endorsement.
Okay.
That's important because if you have some effluent that comes up through the drains and causes damage to that lower level, unless you have that endorsement, very rarely is it covered. So it's important to add these kind of endorsements.
Okay.
We have a sump pump overflow where you might have a sump pump in some homes because of the water table. They'll have a sump pump that pumps water out that comes in through the floor, only it's not coming up through the floor, it's coming up through a pit. And the sump pump pumps the water out. If that pump were to be damaged or were to be non-functional for a period of time and the water comes into your home and does some damage, then we want to be able to come back and fix that. So that sump pump and sewer backup endorsement is one of the important endorsements that you want to look at.
Okay.
We look at other types of endorsements as well when it comes to jewelry. You might have more jewelry than what's allotted for initially in the policy in terms of personal property coverage. So we would want to talk to you about that and determine whether or not we needed an appraisal in order to put an endorsement on the policy to cover that specific item.
Okay.
So that's one item. Oftentimes firearms are an issue.
Oh,
So there's limits on certain firearms, that's correct. And then tools. We have a lot of tradespeople in this town. And so there is a coverage under their business policy for their tools, but there may be a lot of craftspeople who say, hey, I like to do some things at home, and so I'm a handyman and I like doing things around my house, and I have quite a bit of a tool collection. How is that covered? And so there's certain limits on personal property within your home and within the tools that you would have within your home that you would use to do your projects. We want to make sure those are covered specifically for theft.
Okay, I hadn't even thought of it.
So different items, different endorsements, all based on the conversation that we have and the questions that we ask the customer when we're walking them through it.
Okay. Well, I think the best thing for them to do would be to call you and sit down and tell you everything that they have and set it up.
We would love to do that. We would love to do that.
What areas do you cover?
So we have locations in Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and in La Junta. So we serve 3 very different markets with typically very different needs. And we enjoy doing that. We have a staff of 11 people full-time and 2 part-time, so we stay pretty busy.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we're excited to get a tour of the office. But thank you for being our guest.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Remember who to call for all of your fabulous real estate and insurance needs. Make it a fabulous day.